Hi guys, my name is Katie or Kbdoesart, and today I'm going to be showing you guys how to 3D model an axe. This is actually requested by someone, so this one should be kind of cool. If any of you guys have another model that you guys want me to make a tutorial on, feel free to DM me on Instagram or send me an email of it, and I'll try to get to it whenever I can. So I'm going to go ahead and put in our image into the front view. So you can go ahead and click space and go to the front view like this. And then go to view, image plane, import image. And I'm just going to find my reference. I'll make sure to link it for you guys as well. But here it is. I'm just going to scale it up a bit as well and place it on the origin. Remember, our shortcuts for scaling is R for scale, and then shortcut for moving is W on your keyboard. I'm going to click looking through camera, so I only see it in the front view, and then I'm just going to turn down the alpha gain just a little bit. You can also turn up the color offset if you don't want the background to be as dark. All right, I'm going to stick with those settings. Okay, so there's a couple different ways that we can create this. I think I'm going to create this in different parts that I'll later combine together. Something that's really sticking out to me is this handle is very prominent. So we could start with that, which will just be a cylinder. So you can grab a cylinder. Let's go ahead and actually, why don't we just make this whole row, kind of like this part can all be the cylinder. I do want to make the radius a little bit smaller, so you can go to polycylinder 1 and let's kind of play with the radius, maybe 0.5, 0.4, 0.3. Okay, that's close. Maybe 0.35. And then I'm just going to move my reference over a little bit. I don't think it's quite centered. Okay, that should be fine. Next, I'm going to take these vertices and just bring them all the way up to the top. Let's go till here. All right, so now I'm going to need to add in some multi-cuts wherever those breaks are. So let's see, we need a multi-cut here, here, and here, and up here. I'm just making cuts where each of these kind of like different sections kind of start. You don't need to be exact or anything, but just getting them roughly there. So now I have these multi-cuts roughly there. Next thing we can do is we can go ahead and why don't we just do, I kind of want to deal first with these metal, the parts that's kind of repeated over and over again. So I'm just going to go through and select those faces. So go into face mode, hold tab or shift, click one, and then double click the next to select that whole row. There should be, I guess, 6 of them, I believe. Yeah, 6. And then these guys we're going to extrude outwards. So go ahead and do Control E to extrude. And then we're going to up the thickness to be however thick it needs to be to match with your silhouette, like this. All right, so next up, this top will need to be extruded as well. So you could just extrude that separately and up the thickness. And then I almost kind of feel like I might just use a cone on the top. Just because I don't really feel like, I mean, I guess technically you can just take this vertex and go up like this to make that little point. That's fine. All right. Now that we've got that a bit, we can go ahead and handle these guys. On the reference, it almost looks like it's like circular or cylindrical pieces kind of going through it. So what we could do is just take a cylinder, rotate it 90 degrees, and obviously definitely bring down like the radius. And then we could just like move it into place. Let's see. I need it a little bit bigger, so maybe 0.4. There we go. And then it would just go through like that. Actually, I feel like 0.4 was too big. Maybe like 0.37. Actually, maybe 0.35 is like the perfect amount. Okay, that's fine. It is also a little thick, so I think I'm going to make the height more like 1.8 or 1.6. Just so they're not like too big. And then technically we could just duplicate that and rotate it 90 degrees on the Y, like this. Oh yeah, so now you can definitely see it's too thick. So let's click R and scale it down like this. And then I'm just going to delete the other cylinder, duplicate this one, and have that one be the one that we keep. So now this one will be like that. Okay, there we go. So these two pieces, let's see. Okay, so it seems like it just has some detailing on it. So that detail is, I mean, like little stuff like that can just be something that we add in, like if you were going to take this into Substance and like texture it. Um, as for just like creating like a base model, you don't necessarily need to like model all of that detail into the actual geometry. So what I would probably do is just model like the shape of it, and then you can texture it like a base color. But if you're wanting to do those small details, that's something that you're either going to want to try and take into ZBrush and then bake those details in Substance Painter. Or, I mean, you can tackle it in Maya. It's just it's not like the best workflow. So next up, what I would do is I would just select those two cylinders and we'll just duplicate them and move them up to go with the next set right here. And then duplicate again, move them up to the next set, and that should be good. So now we have those guys. All right, and then I want to figure out what this is. So it almost seems like this is actually more rectangular than cylindrical, um, which is fine. We can um, we can leave it as a cylinder, or you can kind of try and like flatten it out. Like if you select the faces and then squish them, that can get you like a more rectangular feel to it. I think I'll do that, and then I want to take these kind of like inside faces right here. Yeah, those 6, and same with the 6 on this side. And I want to extrude those guys and then offset them in a little bit and then push the thickness down like that, just to like give it a little bit of a detail. Okay, that's good. And then we're going to go ahead and use these, I guess we'll just go for 2. These 2 faces, if you extrude that and up the thickness, we'll use that as our axe. So you can just first just get the thickness up out to the edge, and then we'll move the vertices around a bit. Okay. So first things first, let's add multi-cuts on both sides. So you can grab your multi-cut tool by holding Shift, right click, and then over to multi-cut on the left. And then I just held control and clicked my middle mouse button, and that will get you a middle cut into whatever you are looking at. So I'm just going to add some more middle cuts like this. And then we've got something like that. I'm going to go into vertex mode. So this is like the outer portion right here. So like you'll see if I select those 3 vertices, I'm actually selecting this whole row, which is good. We can technically use this row as like this side if we wanted to. We could also pull these guys down and you'll get a shape that kind of looks like this. And then you'll have to take this guy down alone and bring him to wherever you want to go. So maybe that might actually be a little too far for the geometry to handle. Maybe we go like about there. I would just like take the vertices slowly down to kind of, there we go. Because you don't want to end up overlapping too far and then you've messed up the geometry. Okay, I'm going to take these guys next and move them on in over here. All right, almost there. Actually, I'll just bring this guy down. Okay, so that is the point that it's going to come to. So I'm going to take these 2 and bring it down to that point as well. And then I'm going to add a multi-cut in this middle because this guy, these guys, will go out like this. All right, so you guys can see like the shape of it kind of forming here. I'm just going to be dragging the vertices down like that. All right, I want one more multi-cut going there. And then I'm going to take these guys and bring them out to the edge like that. Same will happen for these guys. We can use those to be the edge. And then these guys will be up at the top. And then we'll need to bring out those guys and these guys like that. Okay. There we go. So that's kind of a good base shape going there. I'm going to add one more multi-cut up here. And these guys will go to the edge like that. All right, the shape seems like that's working well. We'll kind of mess around with beveling some edges. Also, I think what I want to do is select these faces. And I think I'm just going to scale them in. Just not be so kind of like thick. And then I'm going to take this edge. Actually, just select these like pieces like this. I'm just trying to get this row because I want to scale it or just move it kind of outward. That way we can kind of get to like a point on the axe. Looks like we lost a vertex in here somewhere. Oh, okay, so this vertex needs to be out more. There we go. Just fixing these guys. All right, so that's one side. I am noticing that this edge is a little too far out. Just gonna scale it in a little bit like that. I want to try and get like a gradient going with those vertices, maybe like that. You can also kind of like take these edges and move them in, make it a little bit more sharp. But that seems good, that seems okay. I'm gonna take this vertex and pull him out as well, making sure that it doesn't cut into anything there. Okay, that should be good. So that is one side of the axe. Technically, I think there is a way to like symmetrize it. I think it would be that you have to take half of the faces, so like that, and then delete them, and then make sure you've got like a perfect edge going all the way down. Okay, so like this would not be there. Okay. Same with, I guess, like these faces. I'm gonna hide these guys real quick. Hiding is just Control H. So you can see I'm just like deleting the faces that will make like a perfect line here. So when you have it cut in half, we'll want to do modify center pivot, and that'll put the pivot somewhere in the center. Looks like it decided to go there. I'm going to delete my history, modify center pivot. Okay, yeah, so it'll go, I guess, there. And then I guess if we select all the faces and do mesh mirror, and let's see the option box, and let's apply. Okay, we can change it here. And then I had my direction in the negative direction, which is wrong, but if you do the positive direction, you'll see that it'll mirror your object to complete the other side. So now you've got an axe that you didn't have to model the other side on. It's just like perfectly symmetrical now because we mirrored it. So next up, let's go ahead and do Shift H on those cylinders again so we can see them. So this is how it's looking right now. I feel pretty good about it. It's looking pretty nice. Let's go look at our reference a little bit. I'm just going to group all my cylinders together for my axe, and then I'm just going to hide it for a second. So it looks like we have some details that we can add in relatively easily. So like details like this kind of like extruded edge, we can totally add all of that in. And then we can add in this gem and these little kind of like nails that are in the piece. And that should be good. Oh, we also need to add the little ring on the end. Why don't we just do that right now? So I'm going to do that just using a torus. So if you grab a torus, let's go ahead and rotate it 90 degrees, and then we can make the section radius a bit smaller. I'm going to make the radius a little bit bigger. Let's see, maybe like that, and then scale it down. Okay, so that's a little too small, so maybe like 0.5. Oh, that's close. Probably a little bit smaller. Let's try 0.35. Okay, that seems better. And then what we can do is we can go ahead and duplicate this guy. And I'm going to rotate this one to be, let's see, 90 degree on X and Y. And then it needs to clip into the mesh like that so that he is holding our chain. So we can achieve that by just deleting half of the faces like this. And then technically if you want it to be filled, you can do mesh fill hole, and you can do the same on both sides, mesh fill hole. And then we've got this guy that you can just clip into the mesh however you need to. Maybe like that, and then we can move this guy maybe about there. Just kind of trying to balance it a little bit. Okay, there we go. So now we've got that chain piece at the end. And then, oh yeah, we can go ahead and add in those gems. So like there's the gem on top. I think I'll probably just achieve that with a sphere. So you can grab a sphere, move it on up, and then scale it down. Probably about that size. And then we can go ahead and clip it into the mesh. That's actually pretty good. I'll bring it out just a bit so like half of it is facing like that. And then you can technically duplicate that and just push it through the other side. So it looks maybe like that. There we go. Okay, cool. So we have that little detail. And then really we can do the same thing when we're dealing with the small kind of like spheres that are going to be in the mesh. These I'll actually use a cylinder for and grab those. Let's rotate it 90 degrees and definitely scale it down. Needs to be a lot smaller. Okay, so it looks like that's about the size that we'll want to go for. Let's go ahead and push it to be just peeking out of the mesh like this. And then I'll actually do this by doing a duplicate special. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to set my pivots to be exactly the same as the axe. So first, select your axe and do modify center pivot. So now the pivot's in the center. You'll want to select your nail, select the axe, and do modify match transformation and then match pivots. So that means that our nail will now move at the same pivot as the axe. But that means that when we rotate it, it'll go perfectly around the axe's polygons right here. So go ahead and select that nail, and we'll do edit the duplicate special option box. Now I'm thinking I want to do one every I don't know, like 30 degrees on, let's see what axis it's rotating on. Okay, looks like it's going on the y-axis. So we're just gonna say to rotate 30 degrees on the y-axis. We'll start with 6. We might change it. I don't know how far it'll go. So let's try, we'll just apply it. Oh, okay, that went very far. I'm noticing that my translates are all 1s. So 0 those out and then apply. Okay, there we go. So actually that's a little too many. So I think let's set it, you can undo that, Control Z, and then set it to 60. There we go, that's the perfect amount. So if you do 60 degrees on the y-axis, and then just do 6 copies and apply, that'll be perfect. Now let me see if it actually made a duplicate here. Okay, no it didn't. So perfect, we have the perfect amount going here. So now what you can do is you could technically just take those 6 cylinders, you can group them, that can be our nails group, and then you can technically just do modify center pivot. You can duplicate those guys and just move them down so that they are clipped where they should belong in the mesh. So Control D, just duplicate and just move them down. And then Control D, duplicate, move them on down. Control D, duplicate, move it down to here, and duplicate, move it down to here. Now we can also go through and rotate some of these groups so that they're not like so uniform. So you can just do take one group and just click E and rotate it. You can match with that silhouette too to kind of make it a little bit easier. But there we go. Just some like quick fixes to make them not look so symmetrical. But there's those nails. Next, we can go ahead and deal with the top of the axe, which we've got like a little bit of detailing that we can kind of add into this. There's a couple different ways that we could do this. I would probably just deal with it doing some multi-cuts. So let's grab our multi-cut tool, hold Control, and I'm just going to make some multi-cuts where these details kind of start on both sides. All right. I'm also noticing that we have some, like, I think they might be gems that we could add in using our sphere that we had here. Or we could treat them like nails and use a cylinder. Kind of up to you. But I think first what I want to do is, since I think this should be treated as symmetrical. So up here you can change your symmetry to be like object X, and then let's see if it will. Okay, yeah, so if you turn on object X symmetry, we can actually treat this object as symmetrical and kind of move some of our vertices around, and it'll apply to both sides, which is kind of nice. Okay, so that looks better. Just kind of matching that silhouette a little bit. All right, and then I'm going to bring this guy down a little bit. Cool. So, next thing that I'm going to be adding in is we're going to need to move some of these vertices to better fit this kind of silhouette. There we go. So I'm trying to follow this line right here. Okay. I'm also going to bring this out a little bit. Not too far, but just out from the mesh. Like that. Same with this one. Just going to bring it out a little bit. There we go. And then I am kind of feeling like I need to add in a multi-cut here and here and here. So just adding those three in and then taking those vertices and hugging them to this outer contour like that. Okay. And then we can use this row of vertices to be the other side. So this side, if you can kind of see it a bit. This one needs to come up, and then this one will carry that. Okay, great. And then I'm just going to make sure that this guy is all good there. We can bring both those in a bit. Okay, so we've got this line kind of being used. I am kind of noticing that this vertex should really end like there. I am noticing that like these vertices are getting a little off. I'm going to turn the symmetry off and just fix that a little bit. So this guy needs to come out a bit. This guy can move in. This guy can come out. Same with that guy. Okay, and then let's see our reference. Okay, gotcha. So I'm actually just going to take this guy up and probably take this guy up a little bit, which means, of course, that guy can come up. And we can do the same to this side, bringing it up a bit, and taking this vertex, bringing it out. Okay. Next, what I want to do is bring this vertex like so, and this one should be fine to leave it kind of like that. Yeah, that should work fine. Okay, so let's just take these faces going all the way around like that. And then same on the other side, like that. They don't have to be perfect by any means. So select those guys, and then also select the bottom and the top on both sides, like this, to kind of make that like row. And then you can just do Control E to extrude it and up that thickness to like 0.05. Nothing too huge, but just a small little detail. And then this whole pattern, I would probably, if you're creating this, I would just do that in texturing. I would not bother doing that in this context. But I will go ahead and add in these little pieces. So if you duplicate our sphere, we'll just use that. You can scale it down and then duplicate it one more time and move it on over, scale it on down. So now we've got both of those guys. The smaller sphere we'll need to grab and pull out a bit more. I'm going to make it like half-ish way, maybe about there. And this one already looks pretty fine like that. And then in order for it to go through the other side, you can just duplicate those two, push them on over. This one can come to about there. This one can come to about there. We have some interesting details like that. We'll do the same thing. If you do Control 1, you can isolate our object. I'm just going to do the exact same thing where I had deleted half of it and then went through and did mirror. So you can just select half of the object like that in face mode. Then you'll have half of your object do the edge, or I mean do the faces, like select your faces, and then do mesh mirror again. We'll need to change it to be positive. I don't know why it always does negative, but now our object is back to being symmetrical. And then if you do Control 1 again, it'll show all of your objects that you had. And then, of course, we'll need to duplicate our sphere over. Actually, we can just do both at the same time. So if you select like both of the bigger ones, duplicate them, then click W and just move them on over. Then you can do both the smaller ones and do Control D and move them on over. About there, yeah. Okay. So that's really probably what I would do in the modeling context of it, a lot of the details and such, I would really implore you to just do them in texturing because modeling all those little small things would be a lot. Um, not saying it's impossible, but I I wouldn't do it necessarily. Um, but yeah, so that is about it. You can click 3 and kind of see how the object is smoothing out if you would like it to be smoothed out like that. Um, I don't hate it for the axe. I don't really love how it rounds out all of these edges. So what I would probably do is I would go through and take all of these edges where the model kind of like cuts at 90 degrees, and you can go through and bevel those so that you get some really nice, clean, straight edges, which is what I'll kind of go through and do now. I'm literally just holding shift and double clicking. So just hold shift and just like double click to get the easy selection of the edges. Okay, that should be good. And I'll go ahead and control B to bevel it. Let's see how one segment holds up. Pretty well. If you could do 2 segments for it to even like hold up even tighter. You can also make your fractions smaller to get those like really tight edges. But there we go. That's about it. I'm going to take these and just push them in a little bit. I just don't want them sticking out as much. Maybe like about there. But that's about it for the general model. So I'll go ahead and delete all by type. You can select everything and group it again, and that can be your axe group if you would like to do that. You can also just mesh combine it all and do it that way. I can go through and add some like really like simple texture onto it. I don't want to do like the full detailed texture just because that's not really what I try and aim my channel toward. So I'm just going to throw some like simple grays and blues onto this. I'll make this like gem material to be like a fun blue, and then we can also make it, if you go to transmission, we can make it a little see-through and kind of mess with that as a gem. But the overall axe, um, we can, yeah, let's go ahead and just select everything except for the gems that we just made. And I guess these cylinders we don't want to select. And then we can apply a new material to that. AI standard surface. Let's up the metalness a bit. We can keep the color like a dark gray. And then the cylinders are kind of like a goldish texture. So we can assign a new material, do AI standard surface again, and we can take that color directly from the picture. You can kind of determine if you want to take like a more goldish texture like that. I'm going to up the metalness on that a bit too. And then technically I could take these faces and texture those to be that gold as well. And you can just do assign existing and grab that gold like that. Okay. And then if you go into face mode, we can select these faces and make it that like leathery texture. So let's see, that's, I wonder if it'll take from under. Oh, it does. That's cool. So same thing there. You can turn up the roughness a bit. Oh, I never even noticed that I missed this. Okay, well, we could fix that by grabbing your multi-cut tool and putting a multi-cut there, and then grabbing these faces, extruding them, and upping the thickness. And then take those edges. That should be fine. And bevel it. I didn't even know that I missed that part. And then take those faces and assign them that gray material. Alright, there we go. Quick fix. Did I miss one on the bottom too? Oh, no, I didn't. Okay, cool. So, looking very metallic. I'm going to save this. You guys should save as well. That's really important. And then let's see, if we delete our history on everything, we can up the roughness on some of these textures, just so it looks a little bit more worn, not as reflective, that kind of thing. So like that gray is still really reflective. So we can totally just turn either the metalness down or the roughness up. Okay, let's see how these textures are looking in Arnold. Let's go click on Arnold and grab a sky dome light, and then I'm just gonna throw a face down really quick and give that the checker texture. Perfect. And then save one more time before you render. Always a good idea. And that's looking pretty good. A little shinier than I would want. So again, you can just turn up the roughness a bit on some of these pieces, especially like that gold is really reflective. There we go. All right. But that is about it. So um, there is your completed axe model. Um, you can, if you were going to like create this, I would really recommend that you throw some like beautiful texture on it in Substance Painter. Really utilize like the normal maps to add in those details, that like ornamentation, things like that. Um, but that is all for this tutorial. So I hope you guys had fun. Check out my newsletter. I usually try and send out tutorials that I'm doing every month, and then I usually I have been uploading tutorials every Monday, so stay tuned for those premieres, and I hope to see you guys there. I will see you in the next tutorial. Bye, guys!